It is 11 in the morning on an ordinary Tuesday, and you are sitting in the waiting room of an exclusive private wealth management firm. The floor is made of polished gray marble, so impossibly smooth that you can almost see your own reflection in it. You are wearing a plain gray t-shirt that has been washed one too many times, a pair of jeans worn thin at the knees, and sneakers that lost their original color years ago. The receptionist behind the massive oak desk glances at you sideways. Her eyes slide over your faded clothes with a practiced indifference, treating you like a delivery driver who somehow wandered into the wrong building. She types your name into the system with a slow, unhurried tap of her manicured fingers. But the exact moment the client profile loads on her screen, everything changes. Her posture stiffens. The condescending look vanishes, replaced by a sudden, jarring silence. On her monitor, your liquid asset portfolio has just officially crossed the $120 million mark. Not a single person in this luxurious room has any idea who you really are. And that profound misunderstanding is not an accident. It is the exact blueprint you designed 10 years ago, because you figured out a truth that most people spend their entire lives failing to grasp. Money that people can see is money that gets asked for, envied, and targeted. But money that nobody can see is money that never stops growing. To understand how you ended up in this marble room, we have to rewind the clock a full decade. You were 25 years old. You had just landed your first serious corporate job, making exactly $60,000 a year. It felt like a massive amount of money at the time. You remember standing in the company parking lot on a Friday afternoon, watching your coworkers clock out. They were all roughly your age, working the exact same job, earning the exact same salary. Yet, they were unlocking brand new, financed luxury sedans. They were wearing designer coats and loudly discussing their upcoming weekend trips to overpriced resorts. In the beginning, the pressure to join them was almost suffocating. You felt a burning urge to march into a dealership and sign your life away for a car that would make you feel adequate. You wanted the nod of approval when you tossed your keys on the table. But then you sat down and did the actual math. That luxury car was not just a $700 monthly payment. It was the premium insurance, the expensive maintenance, and the elevated lifestyle required to match the leather seats. You realized that every single look of admiration they bought in that parking lot was being paid for with thousands of hours of future forced labor. They were not wealthy. They were just highly leveraged actors in a social theater, using borrowed money to impress other people who were also drowning in debt. So, you made a quiet, radical choice. You refused to step onto the stage. Instead of upgrading your life, you built a suit of armor out of absolute mediocrity. You kept driving your 6-year-old paid-off car with a slight dent in the bumper. You rented a clean, modest apartment in a safe but entirely unremarkable neighborhood. You bought clothes for utility, ignoring every seasonal trend and flashy logo. At first, it just felt like you were saving a few extra bucks. But you had no idea that this invisible armor was about to do much more than just protect your wallet. Years started to blur together. Your career advanced. Your salary climbed from $60,000 to $100,000 and eventually hit $150,000 a year. Society's default script dictates that this is the exact moment you upgrade your entire existence to reflect your new income bracket. But you did something completely unnatural. You froze your lifestyle at the exact level of someone making $50,000. Every single month, the moment your paycheck hit your checking account, a massive 60% of it instantly vanished. You set up an automated system that violently ripped the money out of your hands and threw it straight into broad market index funds before you could even see it. Before the dopamine hit of a high balance could convince you that you deserved a reward. On the outside, your life looked painfully stagnant. Your coworkers genuinely thought you were struggling. Your neighbors assumed you lacked ambition. But beneath that boring, static surface, your financial engine was sprinting at full speed. Compound interest began to stretch its invisible tentacles, gripping every dollar you saved and violently multiplying it. Your net worth quietly crossed $100,000, then $300,000. And as the numbers in the dark grew larger, you started to notice a bizarre psychological defense mechanism taking shape around you. You began to see the hidden tax of visible wealth destroying the people around you. When your well-dressed colleagues took their luxury cars to the mechanic, they were aggressively upsold on premium packages they did not need, simply because they looked like they could afford it. When they posted pictures of their lavish vacations, their inboxes flooded with messages from distant relatives asking for loans that would never be repaid. They even became prime targets for frivolous lawsuits because opposing lawyers look at visible wealth and see a deep pocket worth chasing. But because you look like you had nothing to offer, you were completely immune. Salesmen ignored you. Relatives never asked you for a dime. Nobody envied you, nobody plotted against you, and nobody tried to extract value from your existence. You were perfectly safe in the dark, but as you were about to find out, the dark is also an incredibly lonely place to live. By the time you turn 32, the numbers on your glowing screen have quietly crossed the $700,000 mark. You are mathematically closer to being a millionaire than 99% of the population. But absolutely no one in your life knows. Later that year, you receive an invitation to your 10-year high school reunion. You show up wearing a simple, unmarked jacket you bought 5 years ago. When you pull out your phone to check a message, the screen has a slightly cracked corner. The looks you receive from your old friends are not looks of admiration or envy. They are looks of quiet, condescending pity. A former classmate who has spent the last 20 minutes loudly discussing the interest rate on his brand new luxury SUV insists on paying for your drinks. "It is all me tonight, man. Do not worry about it," he says, patting you on the shoulder with a tone that assumes you are struggling to keep your head above water. In that exact moment, standing under the dim lights of the rented banquet hall, your ego takes a massive bruising hit. The human desire to be recognized, to be respected by your peers, screams at you to defend yourself. You walk back to the parking lot and sit in the driver's seat of your aging, unremarkable car. Your hands grip the steering wheel. A violently loud voice in your head tells you to march into a bank tomorrow morning, withdraw $100,000 in pure cash, and buy a Porsche just to force them to swallow their pity. The urge to prove your success, to validate your existence through visible, undeniable wealth is intoxicating. You have the money. You could destroy their assumptions in a single afternoon. But you take a deep, shaky breath. You look at your old dashboard. You realize that if you spend that money to buy their respect, you are transferring your power to them. You would be trading a piece of your actual freedom for a fleeting moment of their applause. You turn the key in the ignition. The engine sputters slightly before roaring to life. You drive back to your quiet, modest apartment, choosing to swallow your pride and remain entirely invisible. It feels like a defeat that night, but it turns out to be the greatest financial decision you will ever make in your entire life. Because exactly 6 months later, the social theater of wealth violently collapses. An economic crisis hits the global market with absolutely zero warning. The stock market bleeds out over a single weekend. Credit markets freeze. And on a random Tuesday morning, your company's CEO sends out a sterile, 3-paragraph email announcing an immediate 30% reduction in the global workforce. Panic sweeps through the office floor like a physical shockwave. Suddenly, the illusion shatters. The colleagues who drove the luxury cars, the ones who bought the oversized houses on adjustable rate mortgages, the ones who wore the expensive watches, are completely paralyzed by fear. Their visible wealth was nothing but a fragile, heavily leveraged tower of consumer debt. And now, the ultimate margin call has arrived. You watch them age 5 years in a single afternoon. They are sweating, frantically calculating how many weeks they can survive before the bank repossesses the cars they used to impress strangers in the parking lot. Some of them are quietly weeping in the break room. They are forced to accept humiliating, exploitive terms from management just to keep their jobs, because their massive monthly overhead has turned them into financial hostages. And then, there is you. You sit at your small, cluttered desk, watching the chaos unfold around you, feeling a strange, profound sense of absolute calm. Because you have ruthlessly lived below your means for a decade, your fixed living expenses only consume a microscopic 20% of your liquid assets. Even if HR hands you a cardboard box and a termination letter today, your hidden financial machine can sustain your exact current lifestyle for the next 8 years without you ever having to lift a finger or accept a job you hate. Your quiet, invisible wealth acts as an impenetrable emotional shock absorber. While everyone else is drowning in the storm, choking on the debt they took on to look successful, You were simply watching it rain from behind bulletproof glass. You realize, watching your panicked coworkers, that the ultimate purpose of accumulating money is not to buy status. It is to buy invulnerability. But the final, most defining realization of this journey does not happen in that office. It happens years later, bringing you right back to the polished marble floor of the private bank where this story began. You step out of the heavy glass doors of the wealth management firm. The receptionist who previously ignored you, who treated you like an invisible nuisance just an hour ago, now watches you leave with a quiet, lingering respect. But as you walk past her, you realize something strange. Her respect, her sudden change in demeanor, does not give you any satisfaction. It simply does not matter to you anymore. You walk out into the crisp afternoon air and stop on the sidewalk. Directly across the street, as if placed there by some cosmic sense of irony, is a high-end exotic car dealership. You stand there for a moment, looking through the massive floor-to-ceiling windows at a gleaming $250,000 machine sitting under the showroom lights. With over $2 million in your liquid portfolio and absolutely zero consumer debt to your name, you could walk through those doors right now. You could hand them a cashier's check, take the keys, and drive that car off the lot without even triggering a margin call or affecting your daily financial security. You have the absolute power to make every person who ever looked down on you, every old classmate who pitied your worn-out jacket, drop their jaw in sheer disbelief. You could finally step into the spotlight and claim the social admiration you denied yourself for 10 years. But as you stare at the reflection of your faded gray t-shirt in the dealership window, you realize you do not want to. The urge is completely gone because you finally understand the fundamental difference between looking wealthy and actually being free. Looking wealthy is a relentless, exhausting performance. It is a full-time job that requires constant upkeep, endless monthly payments, and a deep, paralyzing dependence on the approval of strangers. It is a fragile glass house that leaves you vulnerable to every shift in the economic wind. Being free is entirely quiet. It does not need an audience. It does not need outside validation. It simply exists, humming in the background, providing an impenetrable shield around your life. That $2 million in the dark is not just a number on a screen. It is a physical manifestation of captured time. It is the ability to look at a toxic boss and walk away without a second thought. It is the profound, unshakable comfort of knowing that if a sudden medical emergency strikes your family, the only thing you will ever have to worry about is their health, never the hospital bill. It is the ultimate sovereignty over your own existence. You turn away from the dealership window. You walk halfway down the block to your old, reliable, invisible car. You press the worn-out button on your key fob, slide into the driver's seat, and smile as the engine starts. The next time you feel the intense societal pressure to spend money just to prove your worth to the world, remember this moment. Stop and ask yourself, are you making this purchase to genuinely improve your life, or are you buying it so someone else will think something specific about you? Remember that every single dollar you spend to buy a stranger's attention is a dollar that can no longer work in the dark to buy your own freedom. In a society completely obsessed with the illusion of success, choosing to remain invisible is not a sign of weakness. It is not a sign of failure. It is the ultimate, undeniable sign that you are building something real. Quiet money does not look for applause. It does not need witnesses. It simply grows, protected, while the rest of the world looks the other way. If this story changed the way you look at money, subscribe to the channel and let us keep building real wealth in the shadows. See you in the next one.